Welcome to the podcast, Mateus. We are at the AWS Summit in London. So exciting. This is your event, right?
No. Well, my event, it's the people's event.
Yes, I know.
But yes, I mean, this takes a lot of time to organize this and make sure that it's a great show every single year. And what do you know? Well, it's 9 a.m. It's full already.
It is.
Day has barely started. That's how London Summit rolls. Like you can register and it's free. And it's crazy that it's even free because there's so much that every year we keep adding more and more and more, training and like certification, one-on-one sessions, more than 200 sessions, all that kind of stuff. It's insane. It's like one of the biggest events, tech events in the city and all free. So
wow, that's exciting.
Yes. Unfortunately, probably because you'll release this after, right? If you're listening to it right now.
It's not live.
It's gone, but there's always next year. So if you missed out, definitely watch out for next year.
And also you can watch the recordings, right?
Absolutely, yeah. So some sessions are recorded, so watch out for YouTube, whatever, socials in general anyway. There's always something, snippets of things, and also people they can connect to after the fact and still take advantage of all this learning, and AWS experts who are always willing to talk to everybody and help them out.
That's perfect. Okay, exciting day ahead. How many talks do you have today?
So I have, after this, I have press engagements, my first ones, which we like.
Okay.
And I'm going to be observed by the PR team. But so I have my first press engagements, which is pretty exciting for me. And then I have a talk, one about agentic AI architecture at Auditorium B. And then I had filming all afternoon, but I think that schedule is changing. I don't know. And then I just have some engagements with the community and stuff, but no official talks. No. My next talk's tomorrow. And no rest for the weekend. I still got to wake up early tomorrow and go to another event at London Olympia, but never mind.
All right. Perfect. Thanks. So let's start with an intro. Who are you, Mateus? We know for each other for a while now. But,
I know.
For the rest of the audience, who are you, Mateus?
Who am I? That sounds like an existential question. I'm not ready to answer at 9 a.m. in the morning.
So let's make it short then.
Well, I am these days senior developer advocate at AWS. I've been in this industry for 25 years. I've done everything. Started as a video game programmer, junior video game programmer, doing ports for Nintendo Game Boy, Assembly Z. I mean, that was intense. And then Game Boy Advance came along and we're like, we can do C. Wow, high level language. And then I did everything in between, went from that to CTO and tech co-founder, and then also did some gigs as like technical project manager and stuff. So I feel like I had really good exposure at different angles of the industry, different companies, different sizes, and then eventually I landed on what I would call my specialty gig, which would be distributed systems.
Mm-hmm.
And so I did a lot of digital transformations in companies. And that's kind of what I got known for and hired for a lot in my 10 years before AWS, I would say. I was very much aligned with the .NET stack. So that's always been my thing. I used to work even with Daniel Roth and all that. I never worked for Microsoft, but with Microsoft a lot. My startup that I had in 2019 was the first one to put Blazor into production. So we're featuring .NET Conf and all that. So yeah, it's been a journey. But now these days, I started AWS as a solution architect. Yeah. And then 2022 became a developer advocate and being introduced to this whole new world where I meet loads of people all the time and still get to talk about the technical stuff that I love. Yeah.
Yeah, perfect. Great. So actually, Danilo was another developer advocate that I had on the podcast like a couple of weeks ago, where we discussed about automated reasoning. Told me, you should talk to Mateus, because that's one of the questions I'm going to ask you. Who should I interview next? So Mateus said, Danilo said, you should definitely talk to Mateus, and because he's big on microservices, and I thought, that's a great idea.
Oh,
and
yes.
Okay, how should we think about microservices in 2026?
Wow. So I literally just did a talk last week or the week before. I don't know. I've done it multiple times. And now it's, I think, in Newcastle, which it's all about how agentic architecture is impacting microservices and what does it all mean for microservices.
Okay.
And funny enough, the one that sparked that thought was you, because we were having a chat like, what could we talk about? And I was like, you know what? I have so many thoughts on that, but I never really structured them. So I put them in a talk, which I call agentic microservices, how the evolution of microservices. And the gist of it really is that microservices have been evolving for a while. Having said that, it's crazy to think that the formal definition of microservices was 2014. It's only 12 years ago.
I know.
But it feels like a lifetime that this thing has been around, right? But it was only when our tech god, Martin Fowler, published and gave it a name in his blog that everybody started talking about it. Now, of course, the evolution continued because it went hand in hand with the cloud, because the cloud allowed pretty much microservices to be democratized, accessible to even small companies. Because at the beginning, microservices were really difficult, very too complex, too much infrastructure, too much cost. So startups couldn't, they wouldn't go down that avenue. Then the cloud came and said, hey, you know what? That's fine. Everybody can have access to this because it's easy to do infrastructure. And now I think we're in an era where it's more about how capable these microservices can be, how dynamic they can be. I proposed a few patterns, which I don't know if they'll catch up on. I'm still trying to coin terms. Everybody tries to coin terms in the industry. One day I'll do one. But the gist of it is that microservices now are evolving to something that's very dynamic, because if you put a brain into it, like a foundation model, in that API, to begin with, you have what is just a smart API, as I call it, right? It's still just an API call, request response, synchronous, but you got big brain giving you more information, perhaps enriching that information, or say it's a catalog of microservices, then the foundation model could automatically spit out different languages or whatever, right? Which is cool. But that's just the beginning. That is like what I like to call generative AI 1.0, right? Which was 2022 when it really went mainstream.
Yeah.
Although we both know it's existed for a very long time. But it captured public's imagination in 2022. And then, just accelerate from there. Now we are at a point where you got agents, autonomous tasks and all that. But now agents, you got different integration points. So you got HTTP into the API front, but then you can do MCP from the client, the agentic client, to the microservice. Then if you have an agent running within the microservice, what I call an agentic microservice, then that can integrate with MCP tools by itself, and then can integrate with other agents via A2A. So it's multiple layers now of things that you can do, which puts a huge spin on coupling, availability, even service discoverability. It's just a whole new way of doing it. Why it's still familiar. So it's good times. Yeah.
Okay. I have a contrarian question then.
Yeah.
Most of the people I know in the agentic space, they will build monolith applications from the get-go. So what do you think about microservices in this context then? Because, most of the people that are, trying to build their startups, and they don't want, there's still some overhead in building microservices, right?
Yeah.
And cloud has enabled us to go faster because we have orchestration layers and so on, like ECS, WKS, and we have a bunch of infrastructure as code capabilities. So that's much easier, but still people tend to really focus on, I feel that the biggest part for them is that there's so much to discover and to work on the agentic space that they prefer the easy route for the rest of the services to put the glue around the agents. So how do you feel about it? How do you think about it?
Well, there is a big spin on the monolith versus microservices thing that agentic architecture puts in there. But before I even get to that, what do I think about that? Monoliths are absolutely a choice. They don't have to be legacy, or they don't have to be the cop-off, like that. We don't know what to do. Let's just do monolith and figure out the rest later. They can be a choice as long as it is a choice, right? Because then you deliberately architect your infrastructure, your software, everything else around it, and your processes and your organization to maximize the benefits of it, while proactively knowing what the bad things are and putting in place the right stuff that offsets that, right? That is a deliberate architectural choice. It's different when a monolith is just something that evolves, like somebody who starts coding, which also is very different already in 2026, the way it was done before. But, starts coding and then deploys it and then go, oh, what do you want now? Okay, let me add that in. What do you want now? Let me add that in.
Yeah.
Which we all know just leads to spaghetti code, a mess, and unmaintainable stuff, which is also impossible for you to then start adding features and features and features. You can move fast with the business, and the business need to move as fast as possible in this day and age. So for me, there are two different kinds of monolith. The accidental one, the architectural, where you actually planned. Having said that, there are way too many things. Like systems are complex by nature these days, right?
Yeah.
Excuse me. So the traditional monolith, where you just have everything thrown in the kitchen sink, it's counterproductive to how the world moves today and the technology that you need to integrate with today anyway. So if you are going to start with a monolith, start with a modular monolith. And modular monolith is absolutely a choice, and it's absolutely fantastic for a lot of companies, for startups, even especially, yes. But modular monolith, it's about trying to have the best of both worlds, right? You can have your monorepo, awesome. You can have, the simplicity of having everything that one deployment block, but you can absolutely divide them up as modules. The thing is that it requires discipline. As we know, developers sometimes not very much about discipline, sometimes about the fun, and that's fine, it's part of the job. But it takes an architect. My passion is architect and architecture, and I've always been very close to architects and architecture boards and stuff. And I always said, as long as the architects stay close to the developers, then they can do the job and have their fun, while the architects can be the bad guys, but between quotes, kind of like SecOps, isn't it? And going, okay, but not this. No, we're going to do this. And just guidance, it's what it takes. But there are frameworks now, like Spring Monolith, which is all about being prescriptive about modular monolith, code structure, and everything else. And I tell people, even if you're .NET, Python, doesn't matter, look at Spring Monolith, because it's a great template on how to enforce boundaries within the technical space of projects or whatever it's available. In .NET will be assemblies and projects, whatever, a bit different, but still, you can translate the idea for that kind of built-in governance. So it's not just based on, best wishes and goodwill and discipline. But a step further from that, the spin on that I say that agentic architecture brings into the monolith is, if you think about how agentic architecture is going now, it's a replay of the same patterns and the same thinking we had before. We started with agents and go, this is amazing. Let's connect every single MCP tool that there is on Earth to it. What happened? We very soon discover, as you know, context dilution and lost in the middle problem. What are those? It's when if you pass too much information, now agents, much like humans, funnily enough, they keep emulating humans more and more because we did it deliberately, right? We base them on our thinking, the way we do it, like deep learning architecture, all that. And they really remember the beginning and the end, but the middle kind of gets lost. So if you start putting too much stuff, that information in the middle gets diluted. Another thing that happens is tool dilution, because if you have 500 tools, the agent starts going, I think is this, I think is that, I think is that. And then these tools start looking a bit all samey to it. Yeah. Again, like humans, right? If you watch 50 comedy movies in a row, they start kind of feeling a bit the same and you stop laughing. So it's similar to that. So now there is this thinking that we're going to specialize agents. So you're not going to have just the one agent connects to everything. You're going to have many agents, each one following on a single responsibility pattern where they should be specializing one thing and one thing only. Guess what? Isn't that what we're talking about between monoliths and microservices? So it's similar thinking. But the spin is that you could have these agents that have connected to loads of tools and stuff before you go on that second layer of, modularization with the agents. And suddenly what you have is a monolithic pattern in agentic architecture, and agent connect to loads of stuff within one microservice, which is a microservice, not a monolith. So it's crazy. So now within the agentic microservice pattern, the way I see it, you got then the sub-patterns of monolithic agentic microservice and specialized agentic microservice. So yeah, but it's interesting.
I'm going to unpack a bit what everything that you said. So first of all, you said that, the choice, selecting between the microservices architecture and monoliths is a choice, and you need architecture to enforce that. And I want to dive a bit deeper on this. Specifically with the AI coding assistant like Hero or Cloud Code, you can actually enforce those rules or good practices or team decisions so that the coding assistant is going to deliver based on what the architect has designed, right? So tell us more about that.
Well, I think the beautiful thing about it is that it automates the things. It automates the things that are the mundane side of things, right? The decision making, it's still down to you, and you can use something like Hero to make decisions. You can banter with it and go, "What do you think about this? What do you think about that?" And then help
the
me.
exploration. You
Exactly.
can look at different design discussion, and then, but you have to be in the driving seat. You
100%. Because then what happens is you may come out with the best coding standards, which can be automated via skill or something. You can kind of do auto checks on whatever's being produced. But now you still need to iterate over it. The agile process doesn't die. The only difference is that you are including a new team member, which happens to be an AI, but it's still a new team member, and you got to treat it as such. Now, it is a team member that can do things at scale for the team, like creating the standards, the boundaries, picking up things that shouldn't be there. Oh, Joe or Jane did this, and that's against the standard. You should know about this. Do you want me to include in the coding standards? Oh, okay, cool. But you still need to evaluate what you're doing. And also, microservices is a lot about evolution. In fact, architecture is, much like Werner said, about the evolutionary architecture. So it's also not something that's set in stone. Today, we have 3 microservices. Tomorrow, we go viral, and now we have a scalability problem. We need to look at the composition because we may have a bottleneck there in one of those things. Kira is not going to proactively go, "Oh, I'm looking at the logs. I can see you're going viral, and you have Black Friday next week. Let me start a decomposition exercise." No, that's up to you. And even if they could do these things, and they probably will, eventually. We're kind of getting there. OpenClaw and all that is starting to take over your computer, even Claude now. That's fine. But even if they do that, it's still, again, a team member. It's like sitting in an architecture board and going, "So what do you think? What have you observed? What we're going to do?" It's just having input rather than let it rule. But does it automate things that I wish I had 10 years, 20 years ago? Oh my God, yeah. Right? Because once you make that decision, you usually have a ramp up, even if it's to do, say, with training your developers into what we're doing next. Like I remember, was it 10 years ago? I don't know. When I was leading a digital transformation, and part of what I wanted to implement in the devs team was TDD, because they were really bad with tests. And one of the problems that we had
of us.
And one of the things we had identified was that we were failing a lot in production. So I was like, there's a lot of things that could have been called earlier. So I trained the team in TDD and all that. But that took like a few weeks, right? Well, a week maybe to decide, a week to get approved, then a few weeks to train, then a process handing over to the lead dev.
And some coaching and some mentoring and some sessions to enable people. It takes time.
Then the governance around it, make sure that everything's there. Are we putting that on, was TeamCity at the time or whatever, well, now we need the CI/CD to pick up on that and run it's a whole lot of things to do. So all of that, let's say 1 month process. Now you go to Kiro. Once you make the decision, which maybe will still take a week because you got to talk to people and decide and make sure that the business likes what we're doing. Cool. Once you're ready, it's not going to take a month. It's going to take 3 days. And then the teaching and the training can even be self-paced because people are using the tool, which will be teaching them to do it and help them get there.
That's good.
So it's a massive, massive impact.
Yeah, perfect. Great. So now going back to the microservices with agentic. So we do have more and more, let's say, serverless capabilities with agentic as well. So some of the components that we have are actually can be off the shelf, like Agent Core, but all the primitives that Agent Core is providing to help our developers build agentic capabilities. So this is very, I think what I like about, what I always loved about serverless is the fact that it's a great toolbox where you can pick and choose all the different modules that you can get, that you want, and you can, glue them together.
To pick and mix. For the nerds like us. Serverless is the perfect fit for agentic architecture, right? Because we know, well, much like microservices itself, again, patterns keep repeating themselves. There's a lot of infrastructure to make this happen. So, any infrastructure concerns and operability concerns that you can offset and reduce the complexity of, my God, that gets you up and running very quickly, right? And sure, some companies are AI companies like us, like Anthropic. They're, like many startups as well. But most companies are not AI companies. They just want to use AI, not on the application level, yes, for business productivity, but also as development. Lots of companies, they have their own products and development teams. So that serverless, it becomes even more important because it gets you going in that competitive stage where we are now, which keeps changing so quick. So you want to keep up with that while giving you time to learn things, because you should still learn things, absolutely. But you can learn while doing, kind of like learning on the job, type of thing. That's what serverless kind of gives you on a business, leadership level. But even as serverless, the agentic architecture put a spin on serverless as well, because you mentioned Agent Core. So some people sometimes ask me, why not just run it on Lambda? Because that's my familiar thing. Because Lambda will charge you for every microsecond that you're running in, right? And with agentic architecture, a lot of what agents do is I/O. So it's just calling something, waiting for that process, coming back, and then putting into context, going back, the agentic loop.
This is where durable functions come in.
That's where Agent Core also comes in, because that's what Agent Core runtime is so necessary. It's kind of like the Lambda for agents, because Agent Core, from a cost optimization point of view, it will not charge you for I/O calls. It will only charge you for processing time of the agent. So if you can run it on Lambda, but you're gonna be wasting a lot of money depending on how long your agentic loop is, up to a certain threshold. Then you're gonna have to use Agent Core runtime because it is the purpose of it. And also, it does things like, for example, that you wouldn't think, just hosting Lambda, it does things like cutting the micro VM for every single session that you have from your users. So every single time a user interacts with your agent, then it will cut the micro VM. Everything will happen there, which means no leak of conversation between different sessions. Also means enterprise-grade security standards already, because once the conversation is done, gone. So you want to make use of all the stuff, because if you don't, you're gonna have to think about all this, and may not even think about all this. So serverless is amazing. And then of course durable functions, step functions have been the one that a lot of people have been using, especially for machine learning, machine training, right? Model training. Now durable functions kind of replaces that, but almost. I don't know what you think, but the way I see durable functions is the go-to default solution. And then if you need more capabilities, then maybe step functions. It's kind of the way I see it. How do you see it?
Yeah, I think, so I had Michael Bosch, he's the product manager for durable function on the podcast already.
Yeah.
I think he gave some great examples of use cases for durable functions. One is payment, but also calling LLMs and waiting for the LLM to come back with the answer. So I think that's good. Step functions are still very powerful if you want to orchestrate and have parallelized steps. And so if you have complex workflows, I think step functions are really good for that. And you can I think the magic with step function is also the fact that it's a glue across AWS, because it connects to so many services natively. So
for sure,
it's really powerful.
I think it's a matter of choice and also familiarization. So people, especially devs who are super familiar with Lambda, using Lambda all the time, they feel right at home, with durable functions. So use that. Fine, that will make you go faster. But you're right. Like, I think for me, step functions is when, you're gonna need a bit more than that. And I mean, step functions has its own execution model as well. So it's good to learn the behind the scenes, because that can help also make a choice of what you're doing, in terms of the endpoints that you call, or even permissions, all that. So, but I think they're both very capable, but a lot of people are loving durable functions, that's for sure. And you can use that for your agentic deployments as well, and, for your special model training.
So, so closing on this serverless piece of, so, I mean, the initial question was how to think about microservices in 2026. So we talked about agentic applications and thinking how agentic can be also considered as microservices. There's a great talk also from our colleague, what's her name? A developer advocate in the US. Can't remember the name right now. She has a talk about architecturing AI applications.
Okay.
Willis is a
Almost
nice
there.
one.
Almost there.
Yeah, almost there. Damn it. I will have her on the podcast soon. So, but she has a great talk. I will put the reference to this in the show notes. But I think you alluded to that earlier. Everything that we learned from, microservices in the past 14 years are still valid and should be applied. And we are not starting from a blank page with
No.
agentic application, and we should not. I mean, some of the good learnings in terms of security also about boundaries for services, they are still valid and they should be, applied. So, what else? What are some of your other takeaways that we should always keep in mind?
Well, I see microservices in 2026 as, if I had to put in one word, inevitable. And they may not be inevitable in implementation, but definitely in concept, right? So if you look at, just as you were saying, and I always say this, everything we do is not a revolution, it's an evolution. Only feels like a revolution until you start digging deeper and go, oh no, these things are built on things we already do today.
Yeah.
Not completely changing things. Even AI, started with tech god Alan Turing, and once he published his paper in 1951 and all that, that's been a lot that's been happening since then. Microservices, started with structured programming in the 60s, then modular programming in the 70s. Then we went to SOA eventually with XML and SOAP and all that kind of stuff. So everything has been building up. There's only the next stage, not an erasure of everything that has been before. So I think that microservices are inevitable because, like we were talking about, even within the new wave of architecture, and agentic applications, you see the same patterns repeating again, the same thinking repeating again. So I think that it's inevitable, at least in thinking, and that stems from the fact that we live in a distributed world. It's gone the days when you would just, wait for a computer to connect and tap, tap. Now these days, my mom wants to start watching her thing on the iPad, get home, watch on TV, then continue on her phone when she's in bed. We are on different devices, different times, watching different things, consuming different data. So the distributed nature of it is inevitable. That is the evolution of the internet and the impact of the internet in the world. And microservices address that. But microservices is just a modern flavor of something much bigger, which is distributed systems. What's the next thing? Seems like agentic, is it? When quantum comes in, who knows, right? But I think the distributed thinking will always be there. And I think the most important thing to think about is the failure modes, for example, because they are the same throughout computer history. Availability, coupling, maintainability even, which is so important these days because applications evolve really fast.
Yes.
You have to patch things really fast as well. Security, always top priority across.
So you need observability.
Observability, which has a spin as well with agentic architecture, right? Sure. Because now you can have a 200 OK green, everything looks great. From a RESTful point of view, that's fine. But that answer could be hallucination, which from an agentic point of view, it's an error. You have to treat it as an error. Doesn't matter, it's 200 OK.
Yeah.
So everything is changing, but it's the way I see it is on the implementation level that is changing. The thinking is the same. So I think that is the inevitable bit. Learn those failure modes, which will drive your requirements as well, cross-functional, and then, of course, your business domain requirements. And then you always be able to keep up with architecture.
Yeah, totally. I think also AI is enabling us to adopt microservices, even if we have a small team and so on, because one of the counter-argument to the adoption of microservices is the complexity of operation, because you have so many pieces that you need to manage and then to troubleshoot, and then it can be a big mess as well. Yeah. So it's very difficult to stitch everything together and troubleshoot problems. So I think AI is great for that, and we released recently AWS DevOps Agents, which is an AI, an autonomous agent that is what we call the frontier agent, is monitoring your infrastructure and all the components. So if something goes wrong, it can help with the triage. It can help with identifying where the bottlenecks are and the problems are.
Yeah,
and
proactively even.
Proactively, yes,
which is crazy.
And you can connect that to your Dynatrace, your Datadog, whatever observability tool that you use.
Yeah,
and it's going to be triggered automatically based on the alerts that your observability solution is triggering. So that's pretty cool.
And that is pretty cool, and it just raises the abstraction layer higher, which is what we need. I actually been seeing, like, when I do these panels on microservices versus monoliths. Up to like until today, I'm still doing those panels. So that's how slow those conversations go, right? And I always said, I think yes, you could start with microservices today. I don't see why not, because there's a lot of things that offset that complexity, which is one of the biggest downsides of microservices, as you're saying. And now more and more, especially with agentic applications and architecture now, that offset is getting even higher because now you have exactly things like DevOps agent and all that, which encapsulates all these higher level stuff that you don't have to worry about, and then gives you that space and time to think about the things that really matter. How you're going to do your business domain, your decomposition, what's going to talk to what, how you're even going to group things, things that people don't think about, like API gateways. Are they bottlenecks of availability? Yes, they are. So you spend all that time, decoupling things, and suddenly they're all coupled in one. What do you do? Well, there are a few approaches, like you should group them into different API gateways, whatever. But all these things is what you should be spending your time on, because they are what matters for your paying customers, which should always be a priority. Their needs and experience should always be your priority because they are paying customers. So this operational side, as much as you can even use agents now to help you get there, the better. And they can do that with microservices in a distributed fashion without you having to think of all these layers. Now, I still saying without thinking, yes, but then not without learning. You can do without thinking, but then understand even what DevOps agent is doing. How is it doing this? Oh, because it's analyzing our tickets. So it's important, for example, that we put good descriptions in our tickets. Oh, should we have a new field so the agents pick up on that? That is still all human thinking led.
And recipes as well. I mean, if you have your playbooks or recipes to do some troubleshooting or to do some operation, you can, train the model by providing the skills to DevOps agent, and it will execute what you have designed as humans.
100%.
We have been used, so it's good.
100%. It's, all its input for the machine. So we give the input and they go, okay.
Yeah.
And sure, they have the brains of 1,000 humans, more probably now. but you are still in the driving seat. So,
and you should remain in the driving seat.
Oh, yes.
Okay. Cool. So we are reaching the end of this episode. Any closing remarks before we do our last questions?
Well, I am very passionate about microservices and distributed systems, and I think it's an organic evolution into it. I love the curiosity that has been accumulated over the 12 years it's been around. And I love that it's almost being revisited, the curiosity with agentic architecture. A lot of people right now, I think they finally cross that, excuse me. A lot of people right now, I think they are crossing the threshold of being curious about AI to then being cautious about AI, going, oh, I don't know, this is too much to learn, too fast, whatever, to understanding that now this is a reality and now it's everywhere. And everybody is now seeing what we saw, even as a company years ago. We have to be, it's like Jesse said once that, Bezos said that it's fine to be misunderstood for a while, And for a while, people thought, oh, you want to talk about AI all the time. Why? This is why. Because now you can even open your most day-to-day applications, Photoshop, I don't know. And then there's AI there and everybody's using it and seeing the value of it and how the amazing things you can do with it. So, from business analysts to content creators to entertainers, everybody's seeing the value of it. So now I think really moved to that place where we're all on the same boat. Let's really make AI shine. And that's wonderful to see, because now there is a marriage between the evolution of this technology and all the effort being put into it and the consumers loving it. And that's why there's this buzz, which we can see right now here, with all these people. I mean, right there, we're talking about Kiro. There's the Kiro tryout demo thing going on there. It's full. There's a massive queue there right now. So everybody's interested and happy and excited about it now. And that is wonderful to say. Because before it felt like convincing people, no, trust us, it is amazing. And now people go, okay, I need to learn this. And I just love that. And I'm getting a lot of the energy in 2026. So yeah, if you are still thinking about, oh, should I get into this AI thing or not? Yes, you should. This is only moving forward. And we all need to make this in a responsible, way, grow further to help us to do greater and greater things. We're going to be Mars soon. We need this text. We need the brain of 1 million humans.
Yeah, totally. And we have important problems to solve on Earth as well. So
yes.
So we need definitely AI. But I think also we need more people to get experience with AI. So to have also to develop this critical thinking about AI and say when to use AI and when not, because machine learning, as we know that, has been working very well for many years and is still valid.
Yeah.
And we don't need generative AI and spend a lot of GPU time on complex stuff that we can do otherwise.
Yeah.
So developing this critical thinking is still very important.
Yeah.
As a technical person to be say, no, this is a great use case for Gen AI, or this is not, or agentic AI it's not. So because we don't want to overdo AI also.
100%. I actually have this talk that I did a few times this year already as well, which I call Is It Agent? I don't know if you know the Netflix show called Is It Cake? I watch it with my mom over Christmas every time. This is the only thing that they had in Portuguese. Now they have more stuff. But anyway, it's just this hyper realistic cakes they put in front of people.
Okay.
And they go, is that a cake or is that the real thing? Right. And I just give a few requirements. And then with the audience, we try to guess, should this be an agent or is this just an app? Because there are apps, they are still just apps, right? Like with anything, if you're going to have agentic application or agentic experience in general, then that comes with a cost. And I don't mean just money, operational cost, training cost, and then of course money as well, more infrastructure, more everything. So you want to do it with a purpose. If you just have a synchronous request response come back, put that data into a warehouse and generate a report, you don't need intelligence. They are very predictable, systematic processes.
Yeah.
So you can just do it the traditional way, save yourself the cognitive load and go with the familiar until you need to change it. So one example that I have in that talk is a customer support ticket. So like I have some requirements first that say, so we just want to classify if it's a bug or if it's a feature request. Then we're going to save into this database. And then we're going to have a nightly job that generates like a report of the one submitted in the day. I said, that's an app. There's no intelligence there. There's maybe a little intelligence because you're going to have in your code some if that goes, if it's a bug, if it's a whatever.
Yeah.
Depending on the deterministic fields that you have, then you may start needing to have classification because, if it's just plain text, now maybe let's bring in some intelligence. But now you're starting to need something more complex. Therefore, let's look into agentic. And even so, you may not need it. It may just be the smart API pattern that I was talking about earlier. You just put the big brain on the API.
Yeah.
It can do the classification because these days you don't need a specific machine learning model for that. You can just have a foundation model and that should suffice for most cases, or customize it if it doesn't. And then, boom, off you go. You don't even need a full agent, But now let's say that we want to route the support ticket automatically to different teams, or even just put on. But now let's say that we want to route the support ticket to different teams, or maybe just post on GitHub, issue already made it public to see if it gets upvoted. That now you need an agent. That's a bit more involved now, right? Because now we're going to have to classify and take action. So we're going to have an agent that we hook up with our GitHub issues, and then it can decide, okay, I'm going to post this one over there. No, this one I'm going to send over to customer support ticket. It's an enterprise support type of thing. Now you go to agentic. So 100% I agree with you. I think, again, it comes down to architecture. Architecture is not about replacing thoughts. It's about adding thoughts to the pool and then making sense of it and bringing all of those together I mean, COBOL is still a thing. People don't realize that it's still a thing. Most banks still run on COBOL on-prem. And some of the systems, they deem impossible to change without massive disruption to the world. So they're stuck in COBOL. So it's not like, oh, COBOL, so old, not an option. Well, maybe you need COBOL developers for your thing. Who knows, right?
Yeah.
The thing is just never be stuck in one option, because that's the beauty of technology and architecture. You have an array of options, plethora of possibilities, and you should learn them, which is the exciting journey, and then pick the right tool for the right job without being too cheesy about it.
So that was a longer closing remarks, but it's cool. Now I know, as Matteo said, every time you put a coin, then the machine starts again. And that's so good. That's so good.
Don't make me laugh when I got a cough. Yeah.
All right. So some closing question then. Would you have a book to recommend?
Oh, so many.
One book.
There is a traditional book, and there's a more modern book, I guess. But the traditional one that I love, that has nothing to do with agentic, is the good parts of JavaScript. Do you know that book?
No.
It's the only physical book, not the only, but one of the few physical books that I kept because I love it. Because it's this size. It's tiny. I love that book. I love that book. So that's a fun book to read anyway. But recently I've been kind of, because I'm working on a microservices course, so I'm kind of diving myself deep into the different perspectives of the main thought leaders, like Martin Fowler, like Sam Newman. One day I'm going to meet him. And he's in the UK as well. It shouldn't be that difficult. But
James Ward.
Yeah, it's so many people, right? But the latest one I was reading was rereading was the what's the title? Building Microservices by Sam Newman, which still doesn't have a new edition, unfortunately. But I think it's about time that it does now, because there's a lot of things that still apply, because theory is amazing. But if you're into microservices, I mean, his books are just the best. I mean, Sam is the best, Sam Newman. So yeah, building microservices and even migrating from Monoliths to microservices is almost like a Bible as well, I find, for that kind of thing. One that I particularly reading, but that has nothing to do with anything, just because I can't let go of my game developer roots, is game design, the art of game design. And it's been 10 years since the last edition. Now he put out a new edition. So I'm kind of reading that on the side when I got time.
Okay.
Yeah. But it's hard to find time for everything. Yeah. Oh, and I'm reading the AWS architecture in Japanese, but that's just practice.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So I can learn how to say AWS stuff in Japanese. But that's just a fun one.
That's good. Okay. So you answered the question about what you are going to dive deeper on, because that's more microservices. That's good. I remember last year we discussed that you wanted to dive deeper into .NET and get back to .NET.
Yes.
Have you been successful with that?
So not so much in the content output for that, but also because I kind of thought this year, it's funny, like I do see a lot of people now kind of being okay with AIs doing the code, and I feel like I put out some .NET stuff out, and when I did, they did worse than like the main the architectural ones, because I do feel like people, the whole conversation about replacing developers. No, it's not replacing; it's replacing tasks, not a job function. Yeah. It's just your job function kind of changes a bit, and I think the way the job changes is that developers now become more architects, which makes sense. It's raising the abstraction level higher. And then you work with AI to generate the code, but you know what you want it to generate. You look after it. You guide it. You are the lead developer and the architect within that same role, while following the guidance of the lead developers and architects as well. So I feel like that there's still interest, but it is funny. I'm kind of seeing a little bit of a shift in the conversation, and more about, say, the .NET operational side. What does that mean? For example, running .NET on AWS, what does that mean? So if you got .NET AOT, like, how do you run it? Well, you do need to do your custom, Lambda thing if you're going to put it on Lambda, because the native framework won't do that.
Yeah.
So it's more about that, the operational side, that I see the interest. But I still want to. I do have a course coming out some point whenever I have time for it, which is .NET Microservices on AWS. So I would say I'm being all kind of successful, but not really.
All right, last question then. What other developer should I interview next?
What developer should do next?
What other developer should I interview next?
Oh God, I know too many people. Oh my God, if you put me on a spot like this, I know too many people. Let me think. DAs, you probably interview most of them, right?
Yeah.
Especially in our team, have you interviewed all of them?
Not all of them, but I think
Is Julian a cop-out if I say Julian?
We can have Julian, indeed.
Julian Wood, have you interviewed him?
Always good to have him.
Serverless, amazing guy. Of course, in the US, if you haven't talked to Eric yet, you're missing out because you know Eric really well as well. Eric, again, another serverless, amazing person that we have.
Eric Johnson.
Yeah, and everybody loves him for a reason. The guy is amazing. The thing is, I also working, and you too now, I guess, with a lot of essays and stuff all the time. Whenever I do my talks and events and stuff like this, and I'm so glad to see them like at London Summit doing more talks and I'm a public speaking coach as well internally, so I help them out with dry runs and stuff like this, and I'm just seeing so many people. They are such great teachers, and it's great to see the SA org giving them all these opportunities to go and speak and stuff. So I actually think you should kind of start speaking with them because there's so many enthusiastic and really knowledgeable, great people there, and I have a lot of names for that. But yeah, I say start with the obvious ones, I guess. Julian Wood and Eric would be my
That's good. All right.
choices.
Thank you so much, Matthias. It was great catching up.
You.
And have a great Area Summits in London. It's going
Thank
to be
you.
an exciting day.
And you too. Are you going to be sitting here all day?
Yes, all day.
So that is a great day.
Yeah,
I wish I had your day. Oh my God. I have to get rid of this cough as well before I go on my talk. Yeah. Anyway, sorry, it's because I ran here because I was late. I'm so sorry.
No worries. Cheers, man.
Take care. Thanks, man.
Bye-bye.
Bye.